Alright Mascot horror fans, your nightmares just got a sequel because there's a new name about to join the pantheon of twisted horror icons, and trust me, this one doesn't just chase you, it makes you run for your life. From the minds behind the viral game that turned trampolines into death traps and the producer of Mortal Kombat comes a brand new horror movie that's ready to bounce straight into hell. Bright lights, big smiles, bloody chaos. But who or what is Frankie? And why is everyone suddenly talking about his cursed game turned movie? Well, let's find out. We're breaking down the story, the video game, and everything we know so far about the film adaptation that's about to redefine mascot horror right here on First Slash. Finding Frankie. Finding Frankie is a parkour horror game where you play as a contestant in a deadly televised game show hosted by a sinister bunny mascot named Frankie. The goal? Survive. The setup? Navigate a series of treacherous obstacle courses inside Frankie's parkour palace, while trying to stay alive long enough to escape and to not get torn apart by the murderous mascots chasing you, including Frankie himself, Henry Hotline, and a few others whose smiles don't quite reach their eyes. And I know you're probably thinking, mascot horror has exploded lately. It feels like every other week there's a new deranged mascot game trying to cash in on this craze. Ever since Five Nights at Freddy's went nuclear, every indie studio has tried to birth their own animatronic trauma machine. Just stroll through the PlayStation store, you'll see an entire zoo of creepy smiling freaks hoping to go viral. So yeah, there's fierce competition in this space, but the question then becomes, does Finding Frankie actually bring anything new to the table? Or is it destined to join the pile of failed furry nightmares collecting dust in the basement of the horror genre? Well, this one's kind of different. It's not just hiding, solving puzzles, or waiting for the next jump scare. Finding Frankie turns survival horror into a full-blown competition. It's basically Five Nights at Freddy's meets Squid Game. You play as one of several players invited to compete for a mysterious cash prize on Frankie's twisted parkour game show. And the second it starts, it's run or die time. It's pretty much all downhill for you as a player. You're sprinting, sliding, vaulting and bouncing through a lethal trampoline park while a giant cartoon mascot tries to rip you apart. You can't hide, you can't fight, you have to keep moving. The courses get more and more dangerous with every round, and the mascot gets faster and smarter. That's the brilliance of Finding Frankie. It takes everything bright and familiar, the mascots the kids show nostalgia, and turns it into something unsettling. The world feels like it's engineered to keep you off balance, where every burst of colour and sound hides something darker underneath. And the longer you play, the more it feels like Frankie isn't just watching you, he's learning from you. And well, apparently Hollywood's been watching too, because now the same candy-coated chaos is making the leap from screen to cinema. The movie. Enter Sean Robbins, the guy behind Mortal Kombat who's clearly decided horror wasn't sweaty enough. He's now set to bring Finding Frankie to the big screen. He's producing alongside 13 films, So It Goes Entertainment and the game's original developers, Superlo Studios. And I mean, having the creators involved from day one is a smart move. It means the tone, pace and identity that made the game work can carry over to the film without losing its edge. And hopefully it also means we'll see real fan service, the kind that respects what makes Finding Frankie unique rather than sanding it down to chase box office numbers. Stephen C. Miller is in the director's chair, and that alone tells you what kind of movie this is shaping up to be. This guy doesn't do slow burns, he does adrenaline. He's worked on Silent Night and First Kill, and that proves how much he knows how to make violence look slick without using its grip. And that's exactly what Finding Frankie needs. He's teaming up with writers Corey Todd Hughes and Adrian Specker, who themselves have described the film as Squid Game meets Five Nights at Freddy, and that's a wild combo, right? Bright, brutal and perfectly chaotic. It fits the DNA of the story down to the ground. Producer Sean Robbins called the project a mix of tension, heart and world building, while Miller went straight for visual insanity, which basically sounds like cinematic whiplash in the best way possible. And honestly, if they pull this off, dare I say it, it could be a hit on the FNAF movie level. There's no cast yet, no release date, but the hype's already building. Knowing how quickly nowadays that game adaptations move once they're greenlit, well, we'll definitely be getting more updates in the coming months, and we'll be sure to keep you updated. Concepts and theories. So this is where things get interesting. Usually when we reach this point in First Slash, I throw out some wild theory ideas or speculate about how the franchise might evolve, but with Finding Frankie, we're working from a blank slate. There's no cinematic universe, no spin-off series, no pre-existing web or lore books, or mobile games to draw from. Unlike Five Nights at Freddy's, which already had a full decades of games, novels and fan theory rabbit holes to build upon, Finding Frankie is starting fresh, and that kind of makes it exciting. It's rare we see an original IP this early in its life cycle getting the cinematic treatment, especially one that already looks so visually distinct and tonally defined. From what's been said so far, the team behind the movie is leaning into the mix of tension and world building that make the game pop. But the question is, how do you translate a parkour horror based experience into something cinematic without it losing its energy? This is a movie after all. Well, that's where I kind of think this movie could stand out. They could treat movement as the true horror. Imagine horror action sequences choreographed like panic attacks, fluid, claustrophobic, relentless. That's something we don't often see in horror or mascot horror, which tends to be static, confined and reaction driven. And thematically, there's a lot you could play with here. The game already dips into the corporate horror vibe, all smiling mascots, flashing lights and fake fun hiding something sinister underneath. This movie could crank that up and really lean into it. The idea of entertainment literally eating people alive, it's reality TV meets influencer culture with a death count, all disguised as wholesome family fun. It's messed up, it's meta, and honestly, it fits way too well. And since the filmmakers themselves described it as FNAF meets Squid Games, it'll be interesting to see how far they can lean into that. It doesn't have to be about parkour and panic. They could use this to set up and dig into the psychology of the contestants. Maybe it's not just random players thrown into the madness, but people who are chosen for a reason. Each round could force them to face something like personal guilt, failure, regret, all while being hunted by these over-the-top, terrifying mascots. It's almost Saw-like. It's a setup that could give Finding Frankie more depth than your average video game adaptation, while still delivering the intensity and chaos fans expect. And then there's Frankie himself. Translating him from the stylized world of game into live action is going to be a serious creative balancing act. On paper, a 6-foot magician bunny doesn't exactly scream threat, but in the right hands, he could be pure nightmare fuel. The smartest approach would be to use a mix of practical effects and CGI. Animatronics and puppetry really would ground him in reality. Then CGI for those fast, chaotic moments where his movements need to be unnatural and predatory. And honestly, if they're smart, they'll just bring in Jim Henson's Creature Shop to handle the practical characters, because let's be honest, they absolutely nailed the look and movement of the animatronics in Five Nights at Freddy's. And look, we can't ignore Deputy Duck in this game. He's the only mascot that doesn't actively try to kill you, at least not at first. He's glitchy, confused, and almost sympathetic until he's damaged. That already makes him one of the most intriguing characters to bring into live action, because the filmmakers could make him something genuinely tragic, the last fragment of innocence left in this corporate horror show, the one who remembers what this place used to be before it all went wrong. Contrastly, the filmmakers could also take him in a much darker direction, a full sense of safety in a world built entirely on manipulation, a mascot programmed to appear kind only to turn on the players when it matters most. It's the perfect setup for a third act plot twist that kind of flips everything you thought you knew about the story on its head. But honestly, Finding Frankie could be a total genre reset if it sticks the landing. There's a reason people are calling it a potential Five Nights contender. It's fast, chaotic and visually distinct, and there's real thematic potential under the surface. If the filmmakers trust that energy and don't sand it down for mass appeal, this could easily be one of the most distinctive horror adaptations in years. Outro. Alright you beautiful horror gremlins, what did you make of the Finding Frankie movie announcement? Could this be the next big evolution of Mascot horror, or will it bounce straight into the cinematic foam pit of bad adaptations? And hey, maybe you've got your own theories about what's to come for the live action universe of Finding Frankie. Drop your takes in the comments, the weirdest, wildest and most unhinged ones might just make it into a future oddly horrific video. And hey, if you're loving our first Slash series, tell us what other upcoming horror franchises you want us to dissect next. From sequels to cursed reboots, no franchise is safe. Make sure you hit like, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss whatever jumps out of the shadows next. We'll see you next time, I hope.